Zambia, good evening, Africa, and warm welcome to State of the Nation right here on KBN TV from Zambia's capital city, Lusaka, with me, Innocent Piri. You can simply call me IP. We get to discuss the ideologies of various political parties in Zambia ahead of the 2026 general elections, remaining with few months from now. Now, we've seen the country has seen the formation of various movements and political parties in an effort to probably unseat the United Party for National Development, UPND, which came into power in 2021 under President Hakainde Hichilema, under the agenda of transforming the country, uniting the country, and of course, above all, delivering development to the country. Now, a few months ago, we did see the announcement of the Movement for National Renewal, NR movement, which was formed, and it was officially announced by one renowned state council in John Sangwa. And of course, later on, they decided to join hands with another prominent leader in the Republic of Zambia who has got a rich CV, having worked in various portfolios both in Zambia as well as abroad. Her name is Madam Dorika Banda. She joins me on set to discuss matters of national governance on State of the Nation. Madam Banda, welcome, and good evening to you.
Good evening. Thank you very much, IP. It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening, viewers all around the world, from the sounds of the introduction. It's great to be here.
It's great to be here indeed, and I'm hosting you for the first time. Before you got into politics, you were working elsewhere. A quick synopsis of who Miss Dorika Banda is.
Miss Dorika Banda is very much a Zambian woman, hails from Zambia, hails from the eastern province of Zambia, grew up in Lusaka, went to school, 3 schools in Zambia. What was then Mkandawire, Olibala Primary School, now Mkandawire, Northmead, and the convent, now St. Mary's. And then much of my working career has been Barclays here, Citibank here in Zambia. And then from there, I went international and joined the International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank Group, and subsequently did some work with British International Investments. And then by my last official job was running an insurance company that works with governments to counter climate-related vagaries. So resilience to drought, resilience to tropical storms, etc., which is very relevant for Zambia. And then after that, I've been sitting on a number of boards before I decided to join the fray of politics ahead of 2026.
Before, let's talk about this angle, this side which cannot be ignored about you and your presence in the political landscape. The late Rupia Banda,
yes,
a man who really tried in governing this country. He called himself, he branded himself Rupia Banda, president for all Zambians.
Yes.
How is the relationship with the late?
Traditionally, in Zambia, we say Natata. He's actually my father's immediate younger brother.
Right.
And the two were very close. At some point, I ended up being adopted by him. My father passed away, and my siblings and I were taken over by various members of the family. I particularly grew up under his household, and so he is my uncle, technically, in the English language, my paternal uncle, but in realistically speaking, from the age of 10 and even before, he raised me. He and his wife raised me. So he is my father. I keep saying IP, I think I need to put out a gazette to explain this, because it's a question I get so often, so often. Yes. So that's the relationship. I hope that clears it.
Right. Would you say somehow he's the man who might have maybe mentored you somehow to join the political landscape today?
Yes, I would, but I would expand it beyond that, because, as you know, traditionally, we come from a family. Within a family, I think it would be difficult for me to single out one of my father's siblings and say it was this person. So I have been raised, especially because my father passed away when we were quite young. So we have been raised by my father's family. But even then, the influence of who we are comes from my grandparents. You know, when we were growing up, the way my grandparents, paternal and maternal, carried themselves was very much around a care for the people, respect for your country, dignity for the self, and making sure that you do not destroy the family name. So we are all responsible for who we are as a family, how we are known as a family. But of course, the influence of growing up under somebody who was political I'm 63, so for pretty much 60 years of my life, has had a significant influence on my decision to try and do my part. Having been privileged by his upbringing, having been privileged in my exposure, it comes naturally to try and do your part for the people of the country. Yes.
Let's talk about you having worked in the mining sector. I mean, you've tried to provide leadership in preserving and also offering governance in the mining sector here in Zambia. And I think about 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, we ran this big headline where it was made known that you had resigned from that huge position you were given. What happened?
I think it's a matter of, you know, sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. You can apply for a job, you get the job, but once you're behind the desk, you realize actually there isn't a match, there isn't an alignment, and so you have to do one of two things. You either stay and you are not giving your full to the job, or you walk away and allow for the job to be done by somebody who is fully aligned in terms of the employer's values, mission, etc. The objectives, I don't believe that we were at any difference, but the modus operandi was maybe slightly different, and for that reason, I felt that I needed to leave that space for somebody who could fully engage into it.
It's quite unprecedented, leaving such a big position in Zambia, where the country is, I think, you know, endowed with unemployment levels as we speak today. And you made that bold decision, says, look, I'm going to step down, I'm going. What were the distinction between what you believe in terms of the modus operandi and that of the UPND, which made you to resign from its government?
First of all, I think it should be very clear that yes, in the context of Zambia, that is a glamorous position. It is something that one would say it's hard to leave and to walk away from. For me, it was a true privilege to be appointed. So I did approximately a year and a half at ZCCM, and it's a privilege that I will always treasure, and I will always be thankful for the opportunity to have been given to do that. But I think what people should understand is also that I had other opportunities. So ZCCM was great from a national commitment perspective, but I had been working for years, and even when I was doing ZCCM, I had other boards that I was doing globally, internationally. And after ZCCM, I was on the chair of Standard Chartered Bank. So one is not short of opportunities, if I can make it that way, which then gives one the privilege to answer your question of having the ability to say, this sits well with my values, this resonates, this doesn't. So it gives you that flexibility to be able to pick and choose, so to speak, without, again, denigrating the honor that I felt to have been given that position. I come from, historically, professionally, and personally, as I described earlier, I come from a background where governance is the front of everything you do. And so when I feel personally that I'm not able to be the pusher of that governance, or we are pushing two parallel roads, as I said, to lead to the same objective, I then have to be honest and true to myself and say, this is not working for me personally. So I would say the modus operandi was around the governance structures, as far as I'm concerned. And maybe some will say, I have been so used to working in the private sector that sometimes public sector, you have to come against the public sector structures, whether it's procurement, employment, benefits. Those sorts of relationships are very different than they are in the private sector. It makes a private sector operation much more efficient, if I can put it that way, as opposed to a government process that one must go through. So that was probably also a level of how urgent, how fast do we move, what are the administrative structures that one has to get through.
Did you at any point, I mean, there were so many angles to the news headlines as mentioned earlier on. I do not know which news headline could be confirmed to have been correct now, in that I'm seated right closer to you or next to you. The other information is that there were some forms of interference. There were some infiltration, political infiltration in your job, which might have caused you or made your job difficult to perform. How true is that?
It's the nature of the beast. ZCCM is a state-owned enterprise. ZCCM is probably the most important, not at the expense of other institutions or state-owned enterprises, but ZCCM is one of the most important institutions for government, for the Republic of Zambia. It is inevitable that government is going to have to be involved in its operations. So, I mean, some have called it interference. I didn't make those announcements. I didn't make pronouncements. I walked away. And that comes fundamentally from a lesson I learned, and I'll digress a little bit.
Please.
I learned it very early in my career. I had gone for an interview. I was leaving Citibank to go to Barclays. And the MD of Barclays asked me why I was leaving Citibank. And I, similarly to how I've answered you, comes to a point where sometimes your direction and the direction of the employer are not moving at the same pace or in the same way, and you need to move on, but how you've enjoyed that job, etc. And he said that was a great answer, because I now know that when you leave Barclays, you will not go out there and start slandering Barclays. You will take the responsibility for having made that decision. So some called it interference, some called it corruption, different people called it different things, the long finger, but it is a state-owned enterprise. And it is owned by government in the portfolios of those institutions. And we come at a time when mining is very critical for the country and very critical to the budget, to the national budget, in different ways, including taxes and so on and so forth. So it was inevitable that almost on a daily basis you're dealing with the arms, different arms of government. And again, that's where I say maybe there were differences in how we do these things. Yeah.
Let's talk about your entry into active politics now.
Yes.
Which direction would you want the country to go into?
I love that question. You know why I love it, IP? Because many times I've been interviewed or asked this question, people dwell on the past.
Right.
People dwell on where we are. And I have come into this play because I want to think about where do we go.
Right.
It's the future. What we will learn from the past, we will absorb the current, and between the two, we will decide what vision do we have for this country. So for me, it's that visionary thing for this country, but for the people of this country. I was at Chongwe Market yesterday. I was at Chainda Market some time ago, a few days ago. And I walked through those markets and I said to myself, there is a huge disparity between our economic statistics, the price of copper, GDP, inflation coming down, taxes being collected, mining production. That tells a great story. But what I saw walking in those markets does not reflect that story. Now, I know that we say it will take time to get there, but we've been there at this game for the last 60 years. Let's say 50 if you give the first 10 years of post-independence. We've been there for the last 50 years. The lives of our people have not changed.
Why?
And my question is why? And for me, there is a huge aspect of that, which is how we govern this country, its resources, and how we govern those in the interest of its best resource, which is our human capital, which is the people. So I want to see a Zambia where children are not walking in the rain to school. The marketeers are not afraid that the day it rains, the water comes off the road, floods the area. I don't know, Chongwe Market, most of us have been there, floods the area. They cannot sell anymore. And whatever they've got to sell, especially tomatoes, will rot. I want to see a Zambia where we have organization, opportunity, facilitation, integration of our people into this journey, into this country that investors love from outside the country so much. Zambia is not working for the Zambian people. You will hear me say this many, many times. It is not working for the ordinary Zambian. It is not working for the 20-odd million Zambians who are living under $3 a day. That's a huge number. What are we going to do about those people? None of us are safe until we elevate that situation.
What could be the final key really to unlocking this potential you are talking about and the dreams, which could be appreciated by all the Zambian people, really? Because you've given a very good historical background where we're coming from, that the 50 years of Zambia's independence or 61 years of Zambia's independence, as a nation we seem to be, it's like there are two classes of people. There are those, the Vapa members, we can call them, and then we've got the Mandevu, the people from the compounds, whose job is basically or merely voting. When they vote for their leaders, and their leaders, once they are ushered into power, that will be the end. What comes next, basically the blame game here and there. The previous administrations, the Kaunda messed up, the MMD messed up, here we are. Who knows, when the UPND leaves power, whoever comes in, whether it to be Madam Banda and State Council Sangwa and the people of Zambia, you also be blaming the UPND and stuff like that. Who has the final answer, the final key?
I think it's both the president of the country, but again, I want to make it very clear. When I say both, it is the president of the country or the leadership under the president of the country, and it is the people of Zambia, the electorate. It is our joint responsibility. One man is not going to change this country, any country. That man is a leader, Asogoleri, Bagateka, our vision. He sets the pace and says, this is the Zambia I want. I want a Zambia where we don't have cholera. I want a Zambia where we don't need to have a vaccine for cholera. Let us get to the root cause of what is causing those things, the problems that we're having. Let us not deal with the symptoms. So that leadership position is what we listen to. Even in your home, whether it's a single family home, it is the mother who will drive the change, the atmosphere, the environment in that home. In a two-headed family home, father and mother jointly, not father alone, jointly they set the pace. In a good home, like we were brought up, we never heard my parents arguing. And we know they did behind closed doors. But what we saw all the time was a joint position. Presidents have said zero tolerance for corruption in the country. When you get stopped at the police and you are in a rush to go somewhere, the police says, you have a conversation and you part with a few kwachas. You are a part of that problem. It doesn't matter how much the president says zero corruption. If in our heads and in our actions we have not thrown that behavior out, we are actually cutting off our noses to spite our faces. We are part of the solution. We must be part of the solution. And that's why I say it is both the government arms, legislature, judiciary, all of the arms that help us to regulate the country, and the people themselves. There is law and order in this country in terms of the documentation, the policies, the guidelines that we have. We, the people, are the ones who are not following that law of order and order. Even on the streets, you see it. Four-way stop. Simple, four-way stops. Now we've got load shedding, so many times traffic lights are not working. If we just automatically resorted to the four-way stop methodology, traffic will flow. But what we do, we play upmanship. Testosterone kicks in. And now even us ladies, sometimes we get a little hint of that. And then what do? You just jam the process. So law and order, discipline, coupled with the whole governance structure, integrity, honesty, pride of nation. A Zambia that works will allow us to be so proud of this country. National dignity, national pride.
As a movement for national renewal, and basing on what you've just explained, you're talking about the mindset change, you know, starting from the electorate as well as the people, you, the leaders, we elect into office. Now, my question would be, for how long will this, you know, take us to renew our mindsets?
It will take us as long as we wish. Remember, I said this is about us. Everything that we see in this country is about us as a population. The blame may be weighted this side sometimes, but it is also weighted equally on us as a people. So how quickly we choose to change is up to us. It is up to us to, first of all, accept, and that is the first of the 10 questions. I really encourage all of us who are listening to go to the MNR website and to just look at the questions. I encourage you to join. As we always say, we're trying to reach 1 million people by the end of this year, and we're really, really encouraging people to join. It's not a political party at the moment. It is a movement for renewal. And if you read the 10 questions and personalize them, I think you will start to see why State Council and myself came together, because it is about this country, even beyond the two of us. The first question asks, do you agree that Zambia is in a crisis? Personalize it. Ask yourself. Some of you may say, no, it is not. I think quite a few of us will say, yes, we're in trouble. We're not headed in the right direction. And then the next set of questions just talk about the issues of law and order, discipline, honesty, integrity, us as a people, you, IP, as an individual, me, Dorika, as an individual. Do I feel okay if I just finish with my Coca-Cola or whatever it is and throw the bottle out the window? And that stuff ends up in the drainage system, and now we end up with cholera because the drainage systems are clogged. So there are 10 questions that are very personal. And I do believe if we answer them and answer them honestly, we can change this country. We can change this country.
Let's talk about the poverty levels in Zambia. From the political independence we got in 1964, I think we have got a huge battle where economic emancipation, economic independence is concerned right now. You have traveled around the world. If you talk about, I will talk about the poverty reduction. Sometimes I get frustrated when you read the 17 sustainable SDGs, and then they'll tell you that by 2030 we have to ensure that we reduce the poverty, hunger. We talk about clean access to drinking water by the people of Zambia, equal access to health facilities, all these pillars, all these goals have remained really a pipe dream. And you as an international, I'll call you an international leader, Where do you think we have gone wrong where poverty reduction is concerned? We've been preaching to our people, been preaching to ourselves that we are going to end the poverty levels by 2030. Where are we today? And the question is, as a movement, you and State Council John Sangwa, do you think this is attainable? And how can this be done? Because if you ask my mother Nikalingalinga, Kanchiria right now, who are the majority voters? They do not care about the issue to deal with. If you tell them about corruption, they will not even understand you. But tell them about food, they will quickly say, yes, you are right, and we'll vote for you because you've told me that you are going to end poverty. It is what every person is experiencing. Not that corruption is good, not at all, but the fact remains that the people of Zambia have been yearning for an economic emancipation. Now my question is, for how long, and how do you intend and your movement to liberate Zambians from this economic quagmire we're in?
I think one of the first things for us to do is every country, every democracy is based and hinged around the structure of government.
Right.
Okay? So the first question I think we need to deal with as a country is, to what extent, what is the balance between the necessary economic steps that have got to be taken by government and balancing that with actually that having, you mentioned the SDGs very, very well. It's like you come from my world.
Yeah.
The SDGs are about impact. So when we are talking about all the economic development, all the numbers that you mentioned, the SDGs that you mentioned, the impact, we are not seeing the impact.
Exactly.
And the question then we have to ask is, what is happening between the growth of the economy and the people? When you are in finance, you use a balance sheet, right? Or even if you are a marketeer, I've spent 10 kwacha to go and buy these things. Then I spent on transport. Then I had borrowed some 1 kwacha from Dorika. Then I have to go and pay for the education. And this is what's left. So I think we, as Zambian people, have got to ask deeply, that 25-30 billion GDP, how is it being spent? And government has got to be able to say to us, from the 30 billion, I've put so much into, one of the biggest problems we have is borrowing. Government is borrowing internationally, government is borrowing domestically. The cost of servicing those debts takes up the bulk of our budget, national budget, which means the residual, not very much, is what goes into education, is what goes into health, is what goes into social infrastructure, not the big roads, but the drainage systems and so on and so forth, the hospitals, etc. It's very little on the budget. So we have to ask ourselves and ask our leaders, how are we going to reverse that expenditure? That means minimizing debt. That means reducing debt. What does that call for? Discipline. We cannot continue to borrow unless we borrow for known returns. Originally, we borrowed for the toll roads. That, because of lack of discipline, whatever was being collected was not going where it was supposed to be going. So for me, financial and fiscal discipline is what will lead us. I don't think that there are Zambian leaders who don't care about the Zambian people. But what will lead us to meet those SDGs is going to be discipline about where we spend our money, how we spend our money, and how we collect in collaboration with people who are doing big business in this country. Corporates should be our partners. Corporates are our partners. You need the large businesses to be able to generate jobs, to be able to be productive. So that's one whole area of, at a national level, are we disciplined? The other area is, how do we, I call it reignite. So on this side, how do we stop the bleeding? Then I say, how do we reignite? Reignite is how do we take Amazul, who I saw at the market yesterday, and move her from 20 of them all selling tomatoes and onion and melon to doing something more productive. The tomatoes, half of them are rotting. 30% of our produce globally, on average, wastes at source, at the farm, because they can't move them. So it's now around, number one, how do we move into processing? There are people doing processing in this country. We are seeing Zambian honey, Zambian jam, Zambian all sorts of things. But it is not filtering down to the people. And for it to filter down to the people, for example, at Pachongwe Pala, you can have a solar-driven processor. You dry your mangoes. I was in Malambo last week. Mangoes are just falling and rotting. Surely, as an MP or even a councillor, can you not go to government and say, guys, I need 1 million kwacha, will buy me, or even these containers that we have that bring in all kinds of things. Those containers you can turn into a production unit. You put a solar panel on top, you put a refrigerator inside, you put a dryer so you can dry the mangoes, they're very nutritious after that, and you can do your tomatoes and your paste at community level. Meet the community where they are. So I think my thinking is we need to start thinking as much from the community level up as we do and focus on the budget, the top level, the borrowings, etc. down. Somewhere in between, Zambians must process, Zambians must produce, Zambians must be entrepreneurs, and they are. They are. How many jobs are you going to create for 20 million people as government? Government's job is to enable our people to have access to finance, access to markets, and access to productivity. They will employ. You are employing here. I don't know how many people you're employing here. We need to think of making Zambians become big employers. That means helping them on the regulatory side. How do you tax them? You know, different levels of tax. You're an SME. I don't know how many different levels of tax you have. That's not helping your business at a time like now, when half the time you're probably not working to full capacity because your power is going out, so you probably need a generator, but that cost, the price of diesel has gone up. In fact, this week it's been difficult to find. So how do we turn that industrious mind on? That's a reignite. And how does government become an equal partner to us?
Let's talk about the health sector as well. We've got the health sector, which is almost sick as well. The question is, what is the movement for national renewal bringing on the table in improving the health system in Zambia? Again, I'll go back to the SDGs and stuff like that. Our leaders, from time to time, they go and assemble, be it at the UN General Assembly or elsewhere, discussing all these things, wanting to improve the health sector. Once they come back to Africa, they come back to Zambia, they are the same people again. Once they get sick, they are flown to go and seek medical treatment elsewhere. But when my mother in Chawama gets sick, he or she has to go and queue up to access medical treatment. On the other side, when it's time for campaigns like now, our leaders in power, they'll keep on highlighting the developmental agenda or achievements they would have done at the end of the year. And infrastructure or health infrastructure will be one of them. They will be bragging that, look at the state-of-the-art hospital we have built for you. But when they get sick, they don't appreciate those state-of-the-art health facilities. Let me be blunt. We've seen even our leaders, a number of leaders in this country, they have gone to die elsewhere, despite having built hospitals in their own country. Where is the sense of patriotism in that regards? If leaders can be running away from their own facilities, health facilities, what is the issue here?
And that is the acid test question. And that acid test question is true for health, it's true for education. Our public health system and our public education system have got to be state of the art, not just in the sense of ichikulwa, the structure itself. It is what is inside that structure. You can have a rudimentary building, but what is inside that structure is what is important. And all these things we're building. There's one in, I think it's Mutendere East. A hospital was built. It's complete, but it's not available to the people.
There you go.
There's no medicine, there's no equipment, there are no doctors in there, there are no nurses in there. So it's just this nice building that we can celebrate and cut ribbons, but people are not able to go in there and get the services that they need. You could have achieved the same purpose instead of putting it into construction of a hospital, massive thing. You could have maybe done a small clinic. We all need to have a structure to go to, but you could have used maybe some of that to do community diagnostic centers. Many times people don't die because of the ultimate illness. People get to that point because the initial phase has not been well managed. There's been no maintenance. Misdiagnosis, late diagnosis, no diagnosis. By the time you find out that somebody has a problem, it is too late and extremely expensive to treat it. So we really need to look at how do we provide access to health for our people, universal health. And if you go back, like I said, let's learn from the past. When we were growing up, I'm not saying that's the solution, but that's a thought process we should give ourselves. When I was growing up, we lived in Libala. Mobile clinics, run by government, used to go through all the compounds, all the high density areas, once a month or whatever it was, weigh new babies, advise the mothers what to feed them, look at whether there might be a disease that's going to, or an illness that's going to affect a lot of the community. So it was preventive. It was preventive. And you can look at our budget, and I'm sure we can reallocate some of what we are spending money on into the actual impactful change. So a building is nice. The new ministries are all nice, but are they impactful to your life, to my life, to the mother in Chawama that you just mentioned? Health is out of reach. Health facilities, preventive health facilities are out of reach. That's some of the things one to think about. But in the movement, and we keep having to remind people, the movement is not going to have a manifesto. It's a movement. The movement is not going to have a policy right now, but it's going to guide what that policy might look like. For health, it is going to talk about a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And therefore, when we go through the budget, let us make sure that we are allocating to priority. And so those are some of the things that one needs to think about. But health is a big problem. And it's too far away from where the need is. People have to be, I know, in Chipata the last time, somebody was being carried in a wheelbarrow to be taken. They were taken to Chipata General, and then they were told the Chipata General to leave the X-ray. We don't have it, the X-ray is there, but it's not working. And that's another thing. We've got equipment in all these places that are not working. Well, where's the efficiency? She was then told to go to the newer hospital. It's also part of the government hospitals. And she got there, and that machine was also not working. This is a grandmother with a baby. So those are ordinary things.
Let's go about the laws of the land. I know that today in Zambia we are on the path of amending the constitution of Zambia. But suffice to mention that we have made several attempts in amending the constitution. But still more, we don't seem to be happy with our own document we have currently. The executive is guiding us that, look, there are a lot of gaps in our constitution. We need to ensure that we At least perhaps we delimitate the constituencies to ensure that CDF is distributed equitably or according to the size of that constituency. Again, the executive tells us that we need to ensure that we bring back, MPs into the councils as well. They have to go back to the councils so that they can also be part and parcel when those deliberations are being made. Also, they are talking about women representation. We need more of you, the women, to take part in the governance of this country. What is your take? What is the position of the movement of national renewal when it comes to the constitutional making process?
There is a process, first of all.
Yes.
It's there, it's enshrined, it's clear how we should run a constitutional review and a constitutional amendment, changes to the Constitution. It is not a few months process. The Constitution is a document that belongs to the people of Zambia. The Constitution in any democracy is a document that when you're making changes, number one, they should not be selective, because within the Constitution, pieces are interrelated or refer one article to another in order to form its completeness in execution. So selective changes to the Constitution is not a prudent way of approaching it. Time-bound approach to changing the Constitution is not. We have had constitutional reviews before, referendums. They have taken a year, because to canvass this country and talk to people. The Constitution is written in the English language because that is our official language. To be able to move from Wanzabombwe, Muchinga province to Lundazi, and explain to our people this change is happening because of X, Y, Z. First of all, it should also come from them. It is the people who should demand a change in the Constitution. It shouldn't be executive that says we want to change this. It should be the people who say this is not working. Our rights as a people are not being met under this Constitution. So the process is important and must be respected. It is already enshrined. The consultation is important. The awareness and I will not say education, because our people are very educated, including in the villages when I go, they know what is happening in this country. So it is creating awareness and soliciting their input across the country. It's a constitution of the people, for the people. And it must be for the people, not for individuals or individual agendas. Number 4 for me, it should never be done so close to an election. It should never be done so close to an election. All it is doing is causing confusion. And then you've got a mixture of things that are already in the Constitution, such as inclusivity. It's there already, on disability, on women, representation from the physically challenged to representation by gender. These pieces are already in there. So what are the new pieces? So that conflation of new, you're talking now about delimitation. That conflation of new and old is confusing people. If we want to do amendments, let's start them at the beginning of office, as soon as we arrive. We're going to relook at the Constitution. We're going to come to you, the people, so that maybe by year 2.5 years in office, you have put that behind you and people understand what we are dealing with going forward.
And what is your ultimate answer right now? Would you say we should go ahead with the ongoing constitutional making process, or?
Personally, I would say we should not. I think there is enough confusion in the system right now. I think the time is too tight. And we're going into the rainy season now, moving people, giving their opinions and so on. I think it's a bit too tight, and I think it's too close to the election. Personally, I would leave it to the start of the next administration.
On the other side, again, your movement is on record, having said that somehow the current document we have is not that bad, but what is not being complied to is basically the implementation of the current laws we have by the leaders in power today. Is that the position?
That has been my position for a long time, about not just the Constitution, but also about the laws and regulations that govern this country. Let me give a very, the example I gave earlier, the four-way system.
Yeah.
The four-way system exists. There's nothing wrong with the four-way system. What goes wrong with the four-way system is our behavior. It's the same with much of the documentation. Of course, policies are always subject to improvement. We live in a dynamic world. Today, for example, the role of technology is unprecedented compared to when the Constitution was first written. So we live in a dynamic world. But when we make changes again, let us make changes in the context of the bigger picture. I am a believer that when you come, let's say Dorika Banda is president, I don't think it's right for me to overhaul all of the system that we have today.
Right.
It's disruptive, it's unproductive, and it's not efficient. And it's not necessary. Rather, if tomorrow we said, the rules that we have on road traffic in Zambia, we are going to implement them to the letter with discipline and respect. IP, do you think that the mayhem on the streets would not change? Tomorrow, if Lusaka, the town clerk and the district council, if they came and said, that structure does not follow the rules. It is too close to the road. It doesn't allow us for expansion. This business should not be here because this is a residential. They are in there. Our friends who, especially your gender, who when pressed, they stop wherever they are and do what they have to do. It is against the regulations. It's there. Vasata, I think it was Vasata who said, Twakula mikaka.
Yeah.
Because the rules on hygiene, etc., as enshrined in our documents, prohibit this. But then, back to addressing the root cause, we then need to make sure that there's toilets dotted around this city so that when people need to do whatever they have to do, they have an affordable, sanitized place.
Those are what, mobile?
Yeah,
toilets?
Mobile toilets.
Right.
Yeah, it would make a big difference. It would also help with the cholera problem that is looming right now. So the rules that we have are adequate enough for us to bring law and order, cohesion, discipline back almost overnight. If there was an instruction and a directive to say, from tomorrow, we will observe what is already enshrined in the laws. Then you are addressing improvements based on where we are today. I'm not a big believer that you need to overhaul the rules and regulations that we have. It is in implementation.
You've, for a long time, held the belief that Zambia has got what it takes in terms of the resources we desire. Zambia, you've described Zambia as a rich country. You've described Africa as a rich continent. But corruption takes the center stage as we speak today in Zambia, be it in the previous administration as well as today in the UPND. We have heard these issues or stories to talk about corruption. And when President Hakainde Hichilema was coming into power, he gave that signal to Zambians that once we come in, corruption will be a thing of the past. We are going to fight the corruption tooth and nail, the past corruption, the present corruption, and the future corruption. What is your assessment where corruption fight is concerned under the current administration? And in comparison to what you envisage if you are to be elected as president of this country or leaders of this country under the movement for national renewal?
I think corruption is an endemic problem for Zambia, and I don't think it is just under this administration. I think we have consistently been running the race to the bottom as far as managing corruption is concerned. It is there. By the way, it is there also in developed countries.
Yeah.
It is just that we have reversed the equation. If in a developed country, what we describe as a developed country, it is at a level of 10%, for us it's the 90%. And I'm not saying those are exact numbers, I'm just saying the take is just too much, and it is to the detriment of our people. And that's why I was saying earlier on IP that if we look at the national budget and we look at what Zambia is producing and what Zambia is remaining with at the very end, some of that gap is going to be the take. Some of that gap is going to be the take. And so how do we minimize so that the bulk of it can go to address the areas that we're talking about, of health, of inclusiveness, of education, and the social side of development. So our drive, our vision has got to be two roads that are running parallel or even integrated is economic development, financial, the investments that we talk about, attracting investors, all of that, building the roads, because that's our opportunity as a country that sits between 8 countries. But we've got to, at the same time, keep our lens on the social development. That's the SDGs you're talking about. We have very much focused on the telling the story of GDP, telling the story of inflation, telling the story of the currency has appreciated, telling the story.
Speaking to figures.
Speaking to figures.
Which does not
we
translate.
have not had the same sight on the social development.
Right.
Even when we listen to ministers, we listen to our news, we listen to the communications that we're getting. What is the weight between finance, mining, commerce and development, and the weight between health, education, and inclusiveness? The heavy weight of the messages we're getting is from the political financial development. We're getting very little in comparison from the social development side of things. And so for me, it is making sure that Zambia is weighted and that the impact is seen on the social development side as well.
Lastly, as we go, what are some of the lessons you have learned so far from the time you joined politics and as a movement, relating with the voters and also the political environment ahead of the elections next year? What are some of the lessons you have learned, either bad or good lessons?
The one that worries me the most is the level of broken trust between the people and the leadership. And I don't mean leadership, current administration, the whole political leadership. Complete broken trust. I'll tell you what I hear most. And you've asked that question. Mukachinje tyani chalo chino mweyanya banda. What are you going to do to make us trust that you're not going to give us these promises and then you will do exactly what leadership has been doing to us over the last 7 cycles of voting? We are promised one thing, then we are forgotten for 4 years, and then we are promised things again. So that broken trust is very, very distressing, and to rebuild that is going to take visible, tangible reach impact on the people so that they themselves are saying, oh, it is so we can still sell. We are not flooded. They will need to see it and feel it. That's how you will rebuild that trust. It's broken.
Wow.
It's like you live in a home and your parents tell you, this is what we're going to do for you, and then they do something different. How are those children supposed to feel? Literally, we must make this real. Let's not be too academic about it. Our people don't trust us. So that's one big lesson that I have learned. Not only do the people not trust us, we don't trust each other. So when people say to me, politics is a dirty game, and I say, why does it have to be? Why does it have to be? And as long as we say politics is a dirty game, it means we as politicians are thinking about ourselves in that game and not thinking about what our mandate is supposed to be, which is about developing this country for its people.
Right.
I have learned that. Number 3, I have learned it's a very selfish environment. It is supposed to be a selfless environment because your responsibility is to the 22-odd million people that form the population of this country. But it's a very selfish game because what I have seen is too many people that are just focused on themselves.
Right.
And it has become almost like a treasury. If I have access in some way or form, I can do my business.
Wow.
That's worrisome.
Madam Banda, allow me to appreciate you for coming through the program, and we hope to continue this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, IP. Can I say one thing?
Please.
You asked me to say what's good and what's bad. What lessons have I learned, good and bad? The great lesson that I have learned is the enthusiasm of the Zambian people,
right.
The love for this country. Ordinary people, you go and talk to them. And they'll tell you, I was at a school, Living Hope, in Jainda Market.
Yeah.
People like that make my heart swell with pride. We can change this country for the better.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, IP. Thank you.
Right, you've been watching A State of the Nation, of course. My guest on the program has been Madam Dorika Banda, who is a part of the movement for national renewal, a newly launched movement. Thank you so much. This is A State of the Nation.